It takes us through the story of how she started boxing at 11 years old, all the way up to her winning 2 gold medals at the Olympics. She is trained by her boxing coach, Jason, who takes her under his wing and sees something in her that he's never really seen before, even in younger boys, and starts the process of training her from a young age, and how she grows and grows and becomes a teen, and how her life has to then start balancing between being a teen and also juggling the fact that she's training for the Olympics. So it is a very, very inspiring story of a young girl who goes through so much in her personal life and overcomes that, while also overcoming the fact that she is in this male dominated sport as boxing is, and overcomes that and becomes a champ. I mean, it was a journey to get to the point that I got to. I mean, I think playing her, it came with its own set of challenges, because it's a real life person that you're playing, and on top of that, she is who she is. So I definitely had a lot of pressure, put on myself, and I knew that the story was so important that I felt that I had to get everything that I could right, as much as possible. I definitely studied like crazy, all the interviews I could find, every fight that I could find, and also her documentary T-Rex by Zachary Canaperi and Drake Cooper, who are also our producers on the film. And that was really a blessing to have. That documentary became my journal. I went back to that for all the years that it took to, film. And it was very, very helpful. I mean, we literally have some scenes from the documentary in our film. So to have that and be able to go back to it and match it as close as I could was really fun for me. So just little things like that, I think, really, really helped along the way telling a story like this. The physical training was a lot. I think I went into it knowing that it would be hard, but because I had nothing to lose, I just kind of went in and fell all the way into it. I had an amazing boxing trainer named Rob Sally, who really, really helped so much along the way, and really became my coach in a very real boxer way. And I think going through that also helped me understand the trainer boxer story a bit more. I think it clicked for me how much you count on them and need their guidance, and need them almost in the room with you to feel confident in what you're doing. And I felt like that with him. And he's an amazing trainer, textbook boxing trainer. I love him so much, and he really didn't hold back with me, and I got into the best shape of my life, for sure. I think what inspired me most about Claressa's story is nothing. It wouldn't be just one thing for me, because there's so many things about her. We are literally the same age. She is from Flint, Michigan. I'm from Detroit, Michigan. There's just so many parallels there, and her achieving what she did at such a young age was so inspiring and not normal, and not only is it not normal just in general, she's also a Black woman in a space that's so male dominated that it is just incredible to see a person with so much resilience, and how she came out and how she's not stopping. And I think all those factors go into why she's inspiring, and inspiring to me in particular. there's just so many things. So it's hard to pick one. Claressa is incredible for at such a young age realizing that and fighting for it at such a young age. You know, I don't think many people would take that into consideration and try so hard and voice their opinion the way that she did. Um, I think it's a very important conversation that we need to continue to have. But at the same time, I'm seeing so much progress, especially this year, which is why I'm so happy that this movie is coming out this year in particular, because I think the moment in sports that women are having right now is just so cool to see. I'm like so excited every time I turn on a sports channel because it's exciting, and I think people are finally opening their eyes to how exciting it can be to watch women do incredible things. And I think this story as well just falls right into place with that and aligns with that so perfectly this year. I think what I want audiences to take away is resilience and understanding that the person that you have to believe in most is yourself. And hopefully they get from it that there's so many ebb and flows in life, and I don't think it's ever going to stop. What matters is how you react to it, what your emotion is towards it, and how you push yourself to keep going. And Claressa is someone that does that flawlessly. And I really think once they watch this, they'll be inspired for sure to move the same way that she does through life. Jason Crutchfield is Claressa's coach. He is played by Brian Tyree Henry in our film. Brian is such a treat to watch on film, on TV, and to actually get to work with him was such a crazy experience. He is the light, I think, on set, and he brings so much energy and joy. And getting to work with him throughout this process was so pivotal for me because I needed someone like him to play almost as a coach, but also as a friend. And he did just that. He did it flawlessly, incredibly, going from one set to this one. I don't know how he did it. He just jumped right into it and played the part just effortlessly. So he's so needed in this film, and obviously Jason is such a great character and such a father figure to Claressa. So he's just pivotal in so many ways and was also that to me on set. So I'm very thankful for him and his guidance. He's such a great person, and I wouldn't have been able to do this without him at all. Barry Jenkins is the writer of our film, and Barry is, I think we all know, very special. And he was the perfect person, I think, to write and tell a story like this, because so much of our film is less words and more emotion. And I think that he is so good at capturing the relationships and the complex relationships between a character and whoever they're speaking to. And I think he did it really amazingly. And I'm just honored that I got to tell some of his words and the story that he wrote. So it was really cool to be able to work with him. Never thought that that would happen this soon in my life, but I'm thankful for that for sure. Rachel Morrison is our director for this film, and working with Rachel was kind of like working with a sister. I feel like she was with me every step of the way in a way that was so genuine, so present, and she really cared so much about this film, about the story, about me, thankfully, and making sure that I felt comfortable and I felt like I understood what was going on and we were on the same page. And I'm really thankful for her for this whole process. It's been me and her, I think, the most that could see eye to eye to each other and seeing this film go from start to finish and all the obstacles that we went through, I think no one really understands it like me and her too. So I'm very thankful for her, and she did an incredible job. And she and Rena, our DP, were amazing at capturing a lot of these moments and worked really well together as a team. And they're all women, and it was awesome, and I think we understood each other on a different level because of that as well. And it meant a lot to all of us. And I think you can see that in the work.
There's a historical moment in sports that happened with this young athlete named Claressa Shields from Flint, Michigan. She is the first female boxer to win 2 gold medals. Also, she's black female. And she won these medals, I believe, consecutively. And it's about her coach as well, Jason Clutchfield, who was also a boxer, a champion as well, and just their journey to her road to success in boxing. This is a true story about this wonderful phenomenon that is Claressa Shields. And it seemed to be a story that was truly anchored in family, because the dynamics between a coach and their athlete is a very special one, but also very complicated and very nuanced. And I think what's really great is that we got to peel back the layers of the onion of who Claressa and Jason are to each other and how her road to success was developed. Also, there was a wonderful documentary called T-Rex that followed them, her road to the Olympics and her training. And so we get to really just see everything that leads up to that. I think the script really reflected a lot about this human connection, right? So often we get to see athletes and we just know them for their talent. We never really get into the fibers of who they are. And so what Barry did here is he really got to show the complexity and the care of who Claressa and Jason are to each other. Well, the research that it took for this was something very, very new for me, because this is a real story. So these characters aren't just characters, they're actual living, breathing human beings that exist. I made sure to really, really watch T-Rex quite often, just to make sure that I could understand Jason's dynamics, to see how he moves, see, the timbre of his voice. But really, the research that really mattered the most was my connection with Ryan, because at the end of the day, that, like I said before, the coach-athlete connection has to feel really lived in. You really have to feel every sinew of who they are to each other. And that's nothing without trust, right? And so, Ryan Destiny, had already been a part of this project before I was in there. She's been training for months. Like, she had to go through all the things that a boxer has to go through. And like, I had it kind of easy, you know what I mean? Like, I'm the coach. I'm the one that gets to bark the orders. I'm the one that gets to, So, but I really wanted to make sure that Ryan felt safe and trusted me, because at the end of the day, this relationship of Jason and Claressa's is real. And, he has known her since she was a child and literally created this champion. And at the same time, there was still this kind of, not kind of, a familial bond, It also is very much father-daughter as well, Like, he took her in and raised her and cared for her every step of the way. And, and she cared for him in the same way. So I really wanted to make sure that dynamic showed in this movie, because like Ryan and I, it's important what you see on screen for sure, but what happens when Rachel says cut is even more important. And Ryan and I's relationship is very unique and very authentic, because we really do care about each other. I mean, she's ended up being like my little sister, but I also knew the, ferocity with which she had to attack this role, and I wanted to just make sure she felt safe and make sure she felt secure, make sure she laughed when things felt a little heavy, make sure that we kept the levity, because that was also part of Claressa. She was still a teenager, training, and so it was really important to me for us to just have that kind of lived-in friendship. So therefore, when it was time for us to get into their bodies and show their story, that it felt authentic, really. This is my first time playing an actual person in the biopic genre. So, when it came to Jason, I was thrown right into it, right? So like, I didn't really get a chance to talk to him, and I made up in my mind, I was like, I want to kind of keep church and state separate for a little bit, because I just wanted to be able to live in it and be there. And we had one conversation at the beginning, But for the most part, I wanted to make sure that I had my own process. I didn't want to feel like I was shadowing him. I didn't want to feel like I wanted to like really just like find it naturally with myself. And then once the production was done, I got to meet him in Toronto, and like this man is, very soft spoken but full of heart. His family, his wife, like, oh my God, like they're all so wonderful. But for me, I really wanted to focus on, the relationship with Ryan and what she was playing, and to really just get in there and just kind of live in it. And I hope it worked out. I hope he's proud. I hope that he, sees himself. I hope that he feels like the relationships are conveyed in a way that he feels is authentic. But I mean, I had a really good time playing him because, you don't really get to see characters like him. You don't really get to see, this kind of man that, really cares about his family and really cares about this sport. And, he's a man of the community, like he's still coaching to this day. Like he's still in Flint. He still has his, his boxing gym. He still brings in the youth. Like, you just don't meet these guys. And the story about guys like him is very untold. And so like, I really just wanted to kind of do a love letter to him, and I felt like if I kept pestering him, about like, so yeah, man, like when you eat cereal, like I didn't want to be like one of those actors doing that. So, but I just, to his credit, what he does and what he did is truly remarkable, because he's just a very special man. Like you just don't meet men like him. So, big ups to Jason. In this film, we meet Jason much later in his life, because he was a professional boxer himself. He had won a few championships, I believe. I think he had, he had, some wins under his belt as well, but he never made it to the Olympics, which I think was one of his goals, to become this major professional boxer. And so you're meeting a man at a place in his life where it's like, well, that dream is kind of gone. So what does that mean? Like, who are you now? And so you find him coaching the youth, and trying to find another champion. And then this champion comes in unlikely places, right? Because here he was a man very devout in his understanding that boxing is a men's sport. And here comes this young black girl from your neighborhood that says, I want to get in the ring. And now you're faced with this challenge and opportunity at the same time to question your own beliefs about a sport that you love so much. It's very interesting because when I took on the movie, I didn't realize how much influence Ryan would have on me. I really, really cared about her process, and I found like, I kind of stepped in and became kind of like a mentor to her too. And I'm also like at that age now where I'm like, am I old enough to be, like, do I know enough to be, share any wisdom with anybody? If anything, I'm always telling the youth, like, don't do what I do. Like, don't, but I see so much potential in her, take after take, I just saw like her really, digging her heels in the dirt and really trying to, not even trying, successfully embodying Claressa. And so, there would be times I pull her aside and we have a conversation about like, what's going on here? Like, we'll connect this way, we'll do this. All right, what if we go in here and we do, and I got that charge that Jason must have gotten when he saw Claressa throw that first punch. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of why I love the movie starting that way, when she's a child and she gets in the ring and then she just starts like beating up old boy. But it's real when you see the potential of somebody. It also harkens back to the people in my life, some of who are here right now. But like, acting wasn't anything I ever thought that I'd be able to do. I loved it, but I'm this kid from the South, like Fayetteville, North Carolina, like not many opportunities came through there for me to feel like I could break out in acting. And if it wasn't for my mentors that along the way that saw the potential of who I am and said, no, you can actually do this. So how do we hone it? How do we really craft it? Because there's something in there. I wouldn't be sitting here right now. That's another big reason why I took this movie, because I also wanted this to be a love letter to them. There's a moment when she wins and they put this gold medal around Ryan's neck, and then they play the Star Spangled Banner, and then the flags fall. And every take I was sobbing. Like every take I could not stop crying, because I was like, not only did this really happen, But this must be what it felt like for Jason to finally make it there with this amazing, protege. And but also to see Ryan up there, it was like my whole body was just like I could not stop crying. And I think that that's the payoff. When you literally see a talent and a magic like that in somebody, and you foster it and you nurture it. So those were the parallels I feel like that were going between Brian playing Jason and Brian connecting with Ryan, is that, I have been doing this for a while, and I still have so much to learn. I'm such a student. Like, I've always been a student. I'm always like, there's so much to learn. But, in this movie, I had to step back a little bit and be like, well, what can I impart? Like, what's the way that I can come and help elevate, the talent that's already there? I'm really hoping that this movie does a few things. Like, I hope that this movie, one, enlightens people and shines a light on Claressa so people never forget her name ever again. So people know that she deserves to be in the pantheon of all these great boxers, male, female, whatever. She's one of the greatest boxers ever. So I hope this movie burns that into people's brains, like, oh my God, yeah, Claressa Shields, But I also hope that it shines a new light on Flint, because Flint is also the hub of creating champions, and also the hub of hope, also the hub of resilience, you know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, like, it is a resilient city. The people of Flint are resilient people. And it's so great that this moment of this movie going out to the world is happening for them, because it's like, it gets to peel back, that cloud that people try to put on Flint, that kind of like, just the element that they've tried to like layer on Flint, which is there, but also there's also this. It created these characters, this family, these people. So that is something that I'm really hoping that The Fire Inside does. Jason asks her, do you know where the term Flint came from? Like, do you know what that term means? And when he talks about it being a stone, this stone that just like could penetrate anything, it couldn't be damaged. One of the strongest stones, one of the strongest minerals ever. I remember reading that and I was like, I really hope that every person in Flint hears this. Because I already know they know it because they live that way, you know what I mean? Like we keep talking about resilience, like the people of Flint are just that. But I remember that moment of having that dinner, because there were a few things happening there. They're in London at this fancy restaurant, eating a steak, and she is having this moment of self-doubt. And I think that that's what's so brilliant about coaches and athletes, because no coach, I don't think any coach thinks that their athlete isn't the best. You know what I mean? Or why would you be coaching them if you didn't think that, And so what I love about that scene is that you see the humanity and the softness and the tenderness, but also the grit of Jason, of like, don't do that. Like, at the end of the day, you are the best person here. You know that. You know why you're the best person? Not just because you are the best fighter, but you're from Flint. It's hard to be a black woman in this society. Let's just start there. It's hard. The challenges, the restrictions, it's just hard. And I watched it, right? Now, on top of that, add that you're this black woman who is trying to succeed in a sport dominated by men, trying to find equality when it comes to pay, when it comes to how you can be, there were so many things that Brian, while filming this movie, was like, what? Like, I just remember, I was like, wait, she can't, they don't want her to say that she's the best boxer? They don't want her to say that she likes to beat things up? They don't want her to, but also at the same time, she's a black woman. And so when her white counterparts are out there doing it, they're like, you gotta be more feminine. You gotta be more soft. You gotta be, she was always, like, the fights in the ring weren't really the biggest fights of her life. The fights of her life happened mostly outside of the ring. Like, how she always had to fit or, change parts of herself in order to, it was incredible to me to watch this young black girl have to do that. But also at the same time, on the other side of that coin, she fought and won in that arena too. because she's the one that changed the wage gap between female and male boxers. She's the one that was like, I need to make the same as these male boxers. She is the only female boxer that has two gold. Like I want us to really like, you know, and so I don't know. There's a lot that I feel, especially right now, with how important this movie is for not just young black women, and not just black women, but you know, black men too, brown men and women too, to see this story, because it, in a world full of no's, you know, in a world full of no's, in a world full of doubt that tells you that you just cannot be yourself, that in order for you to succeed, you must do it this way and look this way and be this way. Claressa was like, nah, nah, period. Like that, she just never at one moment took that as her gospel. And what I love the most about Jason is that he wrote that with her. What I will say about Rachel is that her eye is unlike anything I've ever seen. One of my favorite moments on set with Rachel was we were filming this scene where, you know, Claressa's getting the news that I can't go to China. And you just watch Rachel come from behind the monitor. She's like, no, strap me up. And you're like, what? And so she takes the camera and like it's boom on her shoulder. And like she just go, and that's where she lives. Like that's where she lives. Like I don't think I've had an opportunity to be in a film or any, you know, with the exception of Hiro Murai, where I get to see the director just pop, you know, get in there and really go back to the roots of like why they got into film to begin with. I think that Rachel is incredibly powerful. I think that she has a huge heart, and I think that her heart was really poured into this film. Like she slept with this film, woke up to it, fed it, showered with it. Like it was a part of her, you know, daily life. And you could feel that on set, you know. I mean, look, she's unlike any director I've ever worked with. Like sometimes she come on set skateboarding, you know what I mean? Like Rachel's gonna be her. But I think what's cool about it is that there's a fresh take when it comes to Rachel. I think that you're not gonna find anybody that cares that much about like every single element of what goes into making a film like she does. Like I remember there was a scene where we were filming at night, and so technically this is a period piece, you know, because this is early 2000, you know, 15, 2000. And she was like, no, we need sodium bulbs. Like these are LED bulbs, we need sodium bulbs. And I was like, what is she talking about? And immediately when it switched, I'm like, oh, and she's like, come look. You know, that's another thing I love about her. She wants you to see. And it's like, this is what you're like, it's so beautiful to watch how she can really, like all those elements like really matter to her. Ryan, I could say so many things about Ryan because I truly, truly do care about her and love her very, very much, and feel like I won't be able to get rid of her even if I try. Like she's just gonna be a part of my life for the rest of my life. We watch men do this all the time, right? Like we get to watch men transform themselves, you know, become, you know, from Bull Durham to Rocky. We get to watch these actors do it all the time. All the time they get to do. And so Ryan approached this in such a way that she was going to give everything she had no matter what. Every single day. Every single day Ryan did it. And I love that, you know, she didn't run away from it. And because it was hard. Like I watched her, I hated eating with her. I was like, man, wait, it's like you're doing that today? But the discipline, the absolute discipline. But also, Ryan, it's amazing because I don't think she has any idea of where she's going to go, you know, and I do. I see it for her, man. Like, but she has no idea, and it's exciting to watch that with her. It's exciting to see these things unfolding in front of her very eyes. It's exciting to see her step into these places and these spaces where she's revered and people get to experience her and people get to see who she is. And I can't think of a more fitting way to do it than playing, you know, a historical boxer, you know what I mean? Like, it's so fated, I think, for Ryan. And listen, like, she is my friend. like that. She's my family. Like I left that movie. I think leaving that movie with the relationship that I created with Ryan was the best thing that ever came out of it for me, honestly. Like, it was truly, to go on this journey with her, to watch her go on her journey is like, to me, it is worth its weight in gold. And so I'm glad that if you haven't heard of Ryan Destiny, you won't forget her after this. And I hope for her there's a sense of absolute pride, because she really, really, really gave her everything in this. She elevated me as an actor. She elevated me as a person. I will never tell her that. Like, I will never be like, yeah. But like, truly, she's one of a kind, and she is very rare talent. And I think that this is a role that she was born to play, is destined. I think audiences should see this film in theaters, not only because it comes out on Christmas Day. I'm the kind of family, like, we will eat, open present, and we go to movies. Like, it's like the best thing to do, because everybody's already on that high of joy and hope, wanting hope and like festiveness, and what's more festive than a boxing film? Especially a one shot by Rachel Morrison, just to be very clear. I think it's best in a movie because, like, that's what we do. We go to the movies to see boxing movies all the time. Like, you know, in England it's called Boxing Day. You know what I mean? Like, so what? Like, why not go and see this on the big screen? Because, like, you're gonna feel more, you're gonna see more. And best to do it with other people, you know, have that experience. That's what the movies are for. That's my favorite thing, is like, it's a communion, it's fellowship, right? It's fellowship. And this movie deserves to be received in fellowship, because, like, it is a celebration. It is, and boxing on the big screen, you know, I don't care what it is. You could be at home in your you know, DIY theater. It's not gonna compare to seeing it on a big screen. But the way that this movie is captured is so big and so alive and so filled with spirit, honestly. And I think that the best way to receive that is seeing it on the big screen. Like, there's nothing like watching, you know, Claressa doing her fights, which Rachel, I mean, I'm telling you, Rachel's cinematography is out of this world, but you get a truer connection of who Claressa and Jason are to each other on the big screen. So please, like, go on Christmas to see The Fire Inside in theaters.
Well, my name is Claressa Shields, also known as the Globe. Born and raised in Flint, Michigan, 2-time Olympic gold medalist, 13-time world champ, pound for pound best female fighter in the world. If I had to describe myself in the ring, I would say, like, ferocious, dangerous, caution. You know, I think my upbringing made me who I'm supposed to be, especially for being a boxer. It made me tough already before I got to the professionals, where you have to fight for equality, fight for equal pay, fight for equal fight time, equal opportunity. It was like I was already used to fighting already, so me adding that fight to my list and being able to accomplish and knock down some of those doors, it's like, I think Flint prepared me for that early on. I was very impressed with Ryan Destiny's physique, her boxing, her skills. I can tell that she put in a whole lot of time in training. And honestly, I couldn't tell the difference between me and her. You know, if you were to put some of my old footage side by side with her footage, you'd be like, wow, you know, she definitely was able to mimic those parts. And you can tell that she really trained boxing. And I was just very, very proud of the film and definitely proud of her. You know, Flint, Michigan is very important to me. You know, to be from there, especially with all the trial and tribulation with the water crisis and then my tough upbringing, it all kind of just go together. And you see that Flint creates some of the greatest people, some of the greatest athletes. We just create greats, even though it's so much trauma and stuff there. It's still just like what it is. I guess pressure makes diamonds, and I'm definitely one of those diamonds. We're fighting on TV, fighting the main event, fighting on different networks, and I was definitely like, hey, every fight paying more money, you know, and I was standing on that. But it was so many other things that I actually stood up for, as far as, you know, like, how long did they promote our fights, you know, how many commercials we have, like, stuff like that. Like, I really got deep into it and was like, whatever you do for the men, do for me. And I think that I have done that so well to where I have fought for $1 million a couple times, along with other women, you know, Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano. And I'm happy that those girls start speaking up for themselves, start knowing their worth and knowing that, look, if I can make $1 million, you can make $1 million. And we all have to like give a good word to each other and support each other. And if we're all together and we all have the same goals, we can make women's boxing bigger and better. And to just make that roll over to WNBA, I'm happy that Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark and Aja Wilson are now getting their shine and everything because they've been worthy of it. It just takes a special spark to make people pay attention. And now that they're paying attention, those girls have to keep being great and, you know, keep breaking records, and they'll be able to one day be on the same equality and level as the men. The biggest advice that I gave the Paris Olympic boxing team was believe in yourself, remove all doubt. That's what I had to tell myself both Olympics. Like, sometime when you're on the biggest stage of your life, like, doubt creeps in, you know, you're sitting there in your room and you're getting ready for your Olympic match and you've been preparing for a gold medal this whole time and you've been telling yourself, I'm going to get a gold, but then something creeps in your head and it's like, well, you know what? Maybe you should just settle for silver, you know? Maybe it's going to be too hard. Maybe this person is too tough. And it just creeps in because you have other people doubting you too and you're fighting in front of the entire world. So it happened to me. And how did I overcome it? I just prayed to God to remove all doubt, you know, and I believed in myself 100% more. Like, getting ready for the fights, when I walked to the ring, even when I watched the film, I'm like, man, I have a look on my face that shows like nothing's gonna stop me. And that was just me praying that God remove all doubt. I wanna believe in myself 110%. And listen, I wanna go out here and conquer. I know that I can do it. It's just all about executing the game plan. So that was my advice to the Olympic team. Like, hey, look, a lot of people are not gonna believe in you no way. So what is the harm in believing in yourself? There is no. My advice to the next generation of boxers is, especially women, build your brand. This is the days of social media. People respect the followers, they respect the blue check marks, and it makes you money. So every fighter won't be able to be pound for pound number one. But if you have a brand, you can go out and you can venture out and do different things and still make a living for yourself, even without a belt. So build the brand, build your brand, you know, what you want your brand to stand for, and just stand for something.
Claressa Shields is arguably the best female boxer that you've never heard of. And that to me is what was so interesting and why I felt really compelled to bring her story to light. She is an Olympic, like a fierce Olympic champion, but she's also a champion outside of the ring. She's incredibly resilient. And it's the story of the American dream versus the American reality if you're not Michael Phelps. Barry and I have been friends for years now, and when he brought me this script, which he had written, I think, always with a female in mind to direct, it was an honor, it was exciting, it was everything I wanted a story to be. You know, like Barry, it breaks convention. I think that that's what's so special about it, is that we expect a certain thing from an inspirational sports movie, and this delivers so much more. It's as much about life as it is about life outside the ring as it is about life inside the ring. I mean, Claressa is a badass. I was so excited to meet her, to work with her, to get to know her, and she continues to be a badass. I mean, she is absolutely undeniable and undeniably herself. I feel so fortunate that in my first movie, I actually get to work with the person who the movie is about. So it's like if I had a question about what music she was listening to at the Olympics, you know, I could just text her. But she was a collaborator through and through. You know, it was interesting to sort of talk about the ways in which we were going to, you know, the movie version of somebody's life. Like, I can only imagine what that would be like to have somebody portraying your mother, your father, your brother, yourself. And so, first of all, it was like very important to me to try to get the details right, and Claressa was really instrumental in that. When we first started casting for the role of Claressa, we were looking for athletes, people who, you know, excelled at a sport but also performed. And Ryan came in and just blew the audition out of the water, but wasn't a seasoned athlete. She had danced, but she really convinced us. I mean, her performance was so undeniable, and she convinced us that she had what it took to sort of transform. And so we we hired her and we began the most rigorous training. She trained for ultimately over 6 months of, nutrition plan, putting on muscle, but then, learning boxing from the inside out, strength training, basically all day, every day. And the result is, even Claressa was blown away by Ryan's boxing and by Ryan's performance and all of the things. She was such an ally, side by side. Anytime I thought we had it, she's like, I can do better. I want another, even when our stunt coordinator was like, you're tired, take a rest. I want to go again. I can do this. I can punch harder. I can sell this punch better. And she really put everything she had and more into this role. Jason Crutchfield is one of the singular, most salt of the earth, tremendous human beings that I've ever had the pleasure of knowing. He works a cable job by day, he has his family to support, and he volunteers almost every night, Monday through Friday, teaching kids how to box at the Burston Fieldhouse in Flint, Michigan. And he still does it. And it was there that he met Claressa, who at 11 years old wandered into his gym, wanting to box. He at the time had never taught a girl. It never occurred to him that girls could be boxers. But she really sort of proved to him, carved a space in his mind and his heart that he could do this and they could work together. And then ultimately this relationship becomes almost like a father-daughter relationship. He takes her under his wing, both in the ring, but also at home. And then with that are the complexities of a father-daughter relationship. I think beyond being a coach, the concerns about boys and about all of these things. Some of it was just, making sure she didn't repeat some of the same mistakes he made. And some of it is the way you start to, really love family in this way that you just want to protect them. To me, what's exciting about The Fire Inside is that it is both dramatic and action-packed. I think the action and the excitement really keeps a propulsive energy through the movie, but then it's these intimate, more dramatic moments that make you invest and sort of sink into the characters and really care. And to be able to do both, and move through each of those moments, I think that they complement each other, right? It is the range of seeing vulnerable high school girl go to beast in a ring and then back to quiet moment that makes us care. I loved working with our actors. Brian, I think we all learned so much from Brian. Brian elevates everybody around him just with, the littlest nuance, but it's he can get the kid that's never acted to step up their game. It was really incredible to work with another cinematographer and to see the way she saw the world differently, see the ways in which we overlapped. I think we complemented each other really well because she was incredibly invested in the lighting and coloring the frame. And she actually was fine to let me operate, and I love to operate. So I got to almost direct from behind the lens, while she was my eyes behind the monitor, sort of making sure in concert we got it right. And directing behind the lens is it's such a gift because you don't have to stop down. The second you stop down or anybody calls cut, everybody runs in and it becomes hair and makeup and everything gets derailed. But when I'm operating, I can just, ask for another take or I can even say I'm gonna cut and then keep rolling and get those nuanced moments that sometimes happen when the actor lets their guard down. So it's I feel very fortunate to be able to bring that to the table. Claressa is such a pioneer in vying for pay equity in women's sports. Professional boxing still has a long way to go, but she was able to get Olympic boxers paid equally, dating back, I think, as early as 2014 or something. The most rewarding part of making The Fire Inside for me has been the incredible collaborations. Whether it's my collaborations with Ryan and Brian or the rest of my cast, with my crew, from prep to post, it's just an incredible group of people coming together to tell a story that I think needs to be told. It was important to show Claressa's faith in the film because it's very true to who she is. Claressa prayed to God before every fight. She also prayed to her grandmother. She brought a photo of her grandmother with her everywhere. But faith is a big part of her world, of her community, and I think she would say it's a big part of how she got to where she is now. It was incredibly important to me that this film felt authentic to Claressa, to her life, to Flint. So to that end, it was so important to me that we shot our exteriors of Flint in Flint. But as far as the attention to detail, we were really lucky that we had this archival blueprint of her life. There's a documentary, there are photo books. We could see even things the level of paint peeling on the wall or what posters she might have had up. And I just wanted to get that right. I think anytime you make a movie about a real person, you owe it to them to get those details right. You know, and then Flint is a character, like we're set in winter, so snow becomes like even those details, like how does it stack up on the curve and things like that. Like I really wanted winter to feel like winter. I mean, I think I also, coming from cinematography, I have such a respect and appreciation of production design, and like the difference between, even for the actor, to be able to open a drawer and have things in it and have those things feel real, and have rust on the can opener, or have the right level of mold on the bread, like all of that. I just think as an audience we feel it. We feel it when it's right, and we also feel it when it's wrong. So hopefully we got it right.
I discovered Claressa Shields' story through the documentary T-Rex. I kind of grew up like a casual boxing fan, but I kind of lost track of it, if I'm being honest. And I also grew up kind of a fan of the Olympics, but more track and field than boxing. And I kind of knew, because a lot of my family was big into boxing, that the U.S. had kind of like fallen off as far as international boxing went. I lived in Oakland for about 8 years of my life in the 2000s, and Andre Ward was really big in Oakland. And I remember I made this short documentary about this gym, and there's a painting of Mr. Ward on the wall, like fighting at the Olympics. And so, I don't know, just kind of in that potpourri, when the documentary T-Rex came around, like a lot of folks, I just popped it on and sort of watched it. And one, I was shocked that I'd never heard of Claressa Shields, and then I was just absolutely stunned at her story, at the journey she had gone through to become, a two-time Olympic champion. It just grabbed me immediately. Yeah, so I began writing The Fire Inside even before Moonlight released, I believe. So this all goes back a ways. Working with Alicia Holmes, who's one of the executive producers on the film. Working with Alicia, we started developing the story, and the conversation that Alicia and I had right away was, I'm not the person who is meant to direct this film. We had a very candid conversation about that. I thought someone who could really, truly identify with what it was like to live a day in the life of Claressa Shields had to be the person to direct this movie. So directing was completely set aside. For me, it was just about unearthing her story as a writer. And Rachel Morrison is someone I had known through the years. I first remember meeting Rachel through a buddy of mine, Ryan Coogler, because Rachel shot his first film, Fruitvale Station. And then I was in this directing workshop, and Rachel was one of our advisors for a cinematography course. And it's so funny how time sort of moves and shapes, because this is before I make Moonlight. It's after Rachel has shot Fruitvale Station, and is kind of on her journey to becoming a director. And once we finished the script, we knew we wanted someone who could really capture the very visceral nature of boxing, who could really command these action set pieces, especially because women boxing is something that people don't encounter casually, at least not yet. With the rise of Claressa Shields, maybe that's changing, knock on wood. And so we knew those sequences had to have this really just kinetic aspect to them, and yet at the same time, the very real life stakes of the story is, Claressa finding her voice, rebuilding, reshaping her family. And so we needed someone who had just as delicate a hand with those things and a stronger command with the more visceral boxing elements. And Rachel just really stood out to us. And so that was how the pairing came to be. Claressa is larger than life, and she doesn't fool around. And so I wasn't intimidated when I first met Claressa, but when you're trying to capture someone's full essence, in a screenplay, a screenplay is very flat. People are very three-dimensional. It was really cool to see all these different sides of her in person. I found myself referring to her as champ, which is not something I do just haphazardly. It was really cool, man. The thing about Claressa that stood out to me was, here's this person who's come from Flint, Michigan, and for me, a person who didn't grow up in Flint, I had this idea of what Flint was, and I went there. Some of those things were confirmed, and my expectations of Flint expanded as well while being there. But there's something so core to Claressa's DNA that has not changed. Despite all the success she's had, because of all the success she's had, she's remained exactly who she is. And so for me, it was just about being in the presence of this wonderful person and really allowing myself to see all three dimensions of her personality. The story of Claressa Shields and The Fire Inside kind of go hand in hand. The Fire Inside is a movie about, an everyday young woman, everyday people, I would say, in the heart of America, which I consider Flint, Michigan to be, and how somehow they came together to sort of like make the sum of their parts greater than the whole of themselves. I don't know if that makes sense. That was kind of how I always saw the story. And what I loved about Claressa, who is this young woman who walks into a gym, and decides that she can do anything that the boys or the young men can do. And then this young man, Jason Crutchfield, who ultimately becomes her coach, actually believing that she can do those things. And those two people going on this journey to win the USA's first gold medal. And I believe at that point, 14, 18 years. We talk about, made in America or the American dream, and we don't think that people like Jason Crutchfield or Claressa Shields are the embodiment of that. And to me, that's what the fire inside was. Now, I also felt like we had to set all those things aside and really sort of think about what Claressa's life means to an everyday person walking into a cinema or turning on their television. And to me, that is, the gold medal is this thing that Claressa and Jason are journeying towards. It's their goal, but once they achieve it, there's not real self-actualization. It's just one thing that they do on this journey to becoming their best selves, their full selves. And I think that's important, because I think sometimes we look at trophies, we look at these metrics, and we decide, oh, that's the measure of my life. But I think the wonderful thing about Jason and Claressa's story, as we tell it in The Fire Inside, is that the measure of their lives is this thing that they accomplished together, and how they then, in reflection of that thing, can really start to take control of their lives. And for Claressa, especially, really possess herself. Yeah, I think Flint, Michigan shapes Claressa in many different ways. I think one of those ways is just, she just does not suffer fools, and she doesn't believe herself incapable of anything. I love, one of the things that's really wonderful about her story that I think kind of goes underreported is just how young she was. When she won her first gold medal, she was literally a teenage girl, fighting against women. Growing up in the gym, she was a teenage girl fighting against boys. Not all female boxers spar, against male fighters. Claressa wanted to, because those were the best fighters in her neighborhood, in her community, that she could spar with. I think something about growing up in Flint, it just put this chip on her shoulder. And I think no matter how successful she is, she continues to keep that chip with her, as an example that, if you're from Flint, Michigan, my grandma used to say, you're made of tough stuff. And I think Claressa is very much made of tough stuff. And that stuff, is kind of like, it's the bedrock of Flint, Michigan. Ryan Destiny brings just a very deep well of feeling to Claressa Shields. One of the things about Claressa is, and she would not jump on you for saying this, Claressa can be loud, She's very big, There's like a lot of energy. If you're walking towards Claressa, you're gonna go through this field of energy to get right up close to her. And yet, if you spend time with the champ, you can see that she's a very deeply feeling person. She's a very emotional person. There's so much, as Hemingway said, there's so much beneath the surface of the iceberg. And I think the task for Ryan and for Rachel in casting Ryan was someone who could be this sort of like this bigness, who could channel all that massive energy, but also still, if you look close enough, you can really see all those things inside. Because I think it is important to remember, Claressa was a girl going through all these things, a girl who became a woman. And I think Ryan, just brings absolute chops, just straight up chops. She got in the gym, she did all the workout, all that stuff, the physical armament, but she brought just actual thespian chops, which I think was necessary to pulling this off. One of the first things I did when I began the project was I went to Flint, Michigan, and I spent some time with Jason. I think Jason is this just, I'm trying to figure out how to describe what I feel Jason and Claressa did together. And for every Claressa Shields, I imagine there are dozens of other kids that Jason has done the same thing with who didn't achieve that same level of success, athletically, but I'm sure they achieved that level of success personally, spiritually, emotionally. And so when I was thinking of the character, it was in that sense. Here is this person who is just breathing life, into all these young people, in a very depressed place, in a neighborhood that has become depressed because of all these societal things. And he has created this bubble. He's using his own money, his own time, in some ways neglecting his own family to build this found family. And to me, there was just something so inspiring about that. And so when I met the cat, and you go to Flint, you sit down, you go to the restaurant, and he is just so open and so generous. And I imagine that when Claressa first walked into the gym, that generosity, he had no idea that she was going to become a 2-time Olympic gold medalist, but he knew she needed something, some structure. I had worked with Brian Tyree Henry on this film If Beale Street Could Talk, so I knew what he could do. And I had also seen him in Atlanta and Side with so many of these other different films. And what I didn't realize was how much he kind of feels like Jason physically. I just did not realize it. And the first time Rachel shared images of me, of Brian as Jason, I was like, oh, that's him. That's the cat I was riding around Flint, Michigan with. Brian Tyree Henry is this dude. And so you don't always have to have a like-for-like match like that. I believe if the actor has the ability, they can create the persona of that character. But it was really beautiful to see just how well Brian and Jason kind of fused together. Women's sports is having, I don't even know what to call it. I was gonna say like a comeback or a renaissance moment, but I think unfortunately, just because of the dynamics of these social systems that we all participate in, it's no secret, that we've always, given a much smaller platform to women's sports, whether that's women's basketball, and right now you have some of the best basketball players on the planet just happen to be women. Whether that's boxing, where one of the most dominant boxers, on the planet right now happens to be a woman, Claressa Shields. Track and field, some of the greatest athletes in the sense of people who are consistently knocking down world records in track and field are women, and yet the platform that their skills get displayed on, for whatever reason, has always been smaller than the one that men get their platforms displayed on. Hopefully with this film, by preaching the gospel of Claressa Shields, by which I mean just telling the true story of what this American hero went through to self-actualize, maybe we can cast a wider light, on this one element of female sport, which is boxing, but hopefully that'll be a reflection on all these other elements. One of the things about Claressa's story and The Fire Inside that was really wonderful to discover, because it wasn't something that was well publicized, was her fight for parity and pay, across the genders in boxing. Here we have this athlete, genderless, this athlete who achieved something that no athlete of any gender from this country could do over the span of about 2 decades, and yet she was being paid similar to women's soccer. The women's soccer team, has won so many gold medals and world championships, and yet they were being paid a fraction of the pay that the men were getting. It's one of those things of Claressa, this young woman from Flint, Michigan, Section 8 housing, decided at the age of 16, 17, 18, I am the best at what I do, and yet I'm being paid a fraction of what people who can't achieve what I achieve are being paid. Something's wrong with that. I think hopefully by making The Fire Inside, by bringing Claressa's story to a wider audience, we can shed that same light that Claressa's already shed, on women's sporting. I think it's important for a story like Claressa Shields to be told today in particular. I'm gonna get a little bit on my soapbox. Man, we're so divided right now. We are so divided. And some of those divisions maybe just come from a difference of opinion. I want to raise my family like this and you want to raise your family like that. Okay, fine. But we're so divided, and finding these places of commonality have become more and more difficult. And in a very simple way, looking at the story of Claressa Shields, this young black woman, from this very depressed place, this depressed neighborhood in Flint, Michigan. And by depressed, I just mean economically depressed. I don't mean a lack of joy or a lack of love, but economically depressed. This person goes out and decides to represent all of us, whether you voted or did not vote, whether you live by the lake or you live in the bricks, all of us, and achieve this thing that no one from this country had the ability to achieve for about 2 decades, and then put the flag on her back that represents all of us. I think that's why the story is so important right now. You know, Claressa Shields absolutely, in living her life and overcoming all these obstacles, represents, you know, the greatness that is possible, you know, when we as a nation come together, you know, to achieve something that's greater than the sum of our parts. I think that's what Jason and Claressa did. I think that's what the story is about. And I think that's why right now, in this moment, this year, it's why I think the story is so crucial.
I actually read the script last time they tried to shoot it in, I think it was 2019 or 2020. I can't remember if I read it or not, because I knew Rachel then, and she told me about it, and then I was like, that sounds interesting, and I watched the documentary just you know, on my own accord. She didn't, you know, tell me like you should watch this documentary. She told me that the film's based on this documentary called T-Rex. So I just searched online and I found it and I watched it and I was like, wow, this is, you know, it has such an amazing characters, Jason and Claressa, and you know, I was like, wow, if this is gonna turn into a narrative movie, that's something I would love to shoot. They asked me to shoot it, which is, you know, such a great honor. And Rachel, you know, being a very successful director of photography herself, you know, I was, you know, flattered that she asked me to shoot the movie. It's, you know, it's such a treat to work with a director who also understands, you know, what we do as a DOP, and I don't mind the other way around either. You know, I work with directors who have zero technical knowledge, and I don't mind that. You know, I don't mind that, but you know, Rachel and I have a shorthand where, you know, we say something to each other and we don't have to explain why, which is great. And then we go like, should we just go to 27 shutter, you know, 270 shutter? And then we're like, yeah. And then Rachel will be like, it's so nice that I don't have to explain. I was like, yeah, I got you. Like, you know, so that kind of thing. And, you know, we tend to have the same note for the camera movements. And, you know, I'm about to tell our operator to do something and she's already told him. And, you know, we tend to have this, you know, kind of the same, you know, notes, and you know, it's been great working with her. And I think she's a really great director. You know, being a director is hard, but she's a very hard-working woman. We have amazing references from the people who made the documentary. I think Zach and. I think, you know, they are amazing filmmakers themselves, and then there's this amazing photography book. Rachel gave it to me, that I think the pictures Zach took, and you know, and then the documentaries and other images from the documentaries and, you know, whatever they documented while they spent time with Claressa. I think those were our main references, so we would look at that. But then, you know, there was a conversation, you know, we don't have to recreate, we are, you know, making the documentary into a movie. So, you know, we've taken inspiration from a certain look, but we will turn it into a cinematic look. So, and then there's got quite a few conversations with other, you know, heads of departments where they were trying to completely recreate something like the documentary, and me and Rachel will be like, well, you know, sometimes you don't have to completely, you know, copy and paste, so we want to twist that into a bit more like a cinematic language. And so I think we did the same with the visual as well. And then sometimes like something like the Olympics, or, you know, you know, the art department, Zosha, they recreated the London Olympics quite, you know, close to what it was, you know, actually like. But then, you know, then we took the inspiration-wise, like lighting, you know, I wouldn't have lit the audience in blue, but then we were watching the documentary and then we could see that, you know, there was some sort of hint of blue there, and we were discussing, like, do you think we should do that? And, you know, maybe it's interesting rather than just all the neutral clean lighting. So, you know, I think our inspiration, like, the majority of them came from the documentary and our research, and yeah. I think that was another thing that I really loved about the script, is that it takes you from, you know, like 12 years ago, however long years ago, you know, when Claressa was 12 years old, to, you know, now she's 15, 16, and, you know, in the suburban, you know, town in America, and onto the huge arena in the international space. And I think, you know, we've had many locations and lighting setups, and I was drawing my lighting plans, and I've actually never drawn this many lighting plans for one project. in pre-production, I was like, wow, like I haven't even drawn half of it. And so I mean, it's been challenging, but you know, I think it's fun in a way that we get to do, you know, different looks. You know, we go through so many different looks and scale in one movie, which is, I hope is, you know, the audience would enjoy watching that too.
Rachel wanted to be as authentic as possible, so we watched the documentary, of course, T-Rex. We watched that a bunch of times. We looked at Zachary, the director of T-Rex, who's also an executive producer on this film. We looked at his photo book and a lot of his photography, as he followed Claressa for years and documented her. So he has like just some of the most amazing imagery of Jackie's house, of Burston, just so much incredible archival footage. So we looked at that a lot. I went to Flint to take my own photos and do my own sort of research and digging. So yeah, just a lot of research, looking at a lot of photography, and doing our best to stay true to the story. Going to Flint was, I think, super important in making this movie. Actually going and visiting, you know, the house that she grew up in, and seeing Jason's house, and going to visit Burston Field House. Actually, like walking through it and being in that space and seeing people actually training in there, just like really getting to live it and feel that, and yeah, just be in those spaces was so important. I drove through the downtown and got to see where her family actually watched her on television when she won the Olympics, and that was, I think, so important in helping us sort of make our decisions here on like where to choose those locations. Yeah, just sort of being there made me feel that much closer to Claressa and to, you know, to her family and to the people of Flint. I think the Olympics was probably the most challenging set, just because we had 2 days to set it up, which is not a lot of time when you are doing a scoreboard, when you're having to carpet an entire space like that, when you're setting up the ring and the LED hallway and the LED banners, and we had to rig up the flags for the medal ceremony and all the rigor setting up the lights. It was, it just took a lot of planning, but we had obviously a great team who all worked together. Our art director was really good with coordinating everyone and making sure everyone was talking, so there was a good plan and a schedule, and it turned out so great. We just finished filming that yesterday. I really like Jackie's house. Today's our first day filming in there, and because we went sort of with warmer, more neutral kind of tones in Jason's house, we wanted to really contrast that in Jackie's. So we went with a very cool color palette. So we went with like plum carpeting and sort of almost gray lavender walls, and lots of texture and lots of window treatments. So we have blinds overlaid with some lace and other fabric, and it's just a very sort of rich looking location in the sense of like materials and texture. I think it's gonna photograph so well. So I'm very, very excited. The most rewarding experience is, I mean, just telling Claressa's story. Just knowing that we are making something about someone so incredible who was so strong and persevered and fought and followed her dreams, and that we were able to retell that story visually, and that now she and her family and everyone will have this you know, tribute to her achievements, and can watch it and hopefully feel motivated and inspired to follow their dreams too. Rachel is excellent. She never sleeps, so you can email her at any hour, and she'll probably reply. She's got incredible energy. You'll usually find her doing a handstand or a backflip somewhere. She knows what she wants. She's got a great attitude. She's been great to work with. I think we're really lucky with this film because of the subject matter and because it's such an important story, that there were a lot of really incredible people who wanted to work on it. So, I mean, across the board, from, like you were mentioning, from our first AD to our construction team and set decorating team, we were able to get so many incredible people that I don't think you could get on any film. So that was also very, very, very lucky that so many people wanted to work on this great film.
There's numerous. I think there was 6 fights altogether. There was a Shanghai fight, there was a Spokane fight, there was a London fight, and Toledo. Numerous fights. They all blend together after a while. We did so many of them in a short period of time. Each one has their own little characteristics, because obviously the fighters were different. They had different styles. And that's part of what we tried to depict in the movie. We tried to stay pretty true to the actual fights themselves. Ryan has a knack for picking up choreography, and her physical boxing skills were just amazing considering she's not a boxer. She really went all out, and she shone like no tomorrow. She was very, very, very instrumental on making this happen, especially with the amount of time that we had. Ryan could pick up choreography in 15 minutes, even less sometimes. We had our boxing double, her stunt double, Deidre, and we would rehearse with her and work out all the choreography with Deidre, and then Ryan would come and step in, and within minutes she had the choreography down, and then it took her not that long to actually get the little nuances together and the moves and all the boxing moves and stuff like that. She was just fabulous. That's all I can say, fabulous. I really liked the Olympic fight. We shot it over a 2-day period. There were a lot of little nuances in that too, because the fight swung, and in the first round, like we shot 4 rounds basically in 2 rounds, and the first round, Claressa wasn't doing very well. She looked like she might lose the fight. So we had to show that, and then we had to show the transition of her getting herself back, and then of course winning the fight. So I really liked the transition that happened in that fight. I love the Toledo fight. The Toledo fight was amazing. We shot that in 1. It was with Kira Fitzpatrick was the opponent, and the fight was very dirty, very street brawly type thing. And again, Ryan shone like nobody's business. She was amazing. She was really, really, really good. I look at the department as if it was a train. And a train runs on the tracks, so it has guidance. However, you do need somebody to slow it down, speed it up, sometimes turn directions. Just because the train is on a track doesn't mean it's going to go straight all the time. So my job is to steer the train, to make sure the train stays on the tracks, speed is right, get the curves. Sometimes you got to switch a track. That's my job to make sure all that happens. Nick's job, Nick Aliotis, my fight coordinator, his job is to put the fights together, which is can't have somebody put them together, you got no fights. His choreography is second to none. He's done numerous movies. This is our 4th boxing film together. So he writes them all down. He sees the fights in his head. He writes them all, puts them all, because all the punches have numbers. And then he puts all that together and puts them all in the ring, and he presents that to the performers. And he just puts all that together. So again, I just keep the train on the tracks, make sure it keeps going straight, speed is right. I hope to get what I got from it, enlightenment, knowing, that there's a female boxing community out there that is fantastic, also the story of Claressa and you know how she stuck to her guns and when she had a vision and she that's what she wanted to do. So the fortitude, you know, the focus, and wanting to just get better and do good and fight hard and stick to your guns, and you'll accomplish things. Even, you know, people will stick some sticks in your spokes sometimes, but you got to keep going, and that's what happened with her. And it's a very proud thing. And once again, I feel very fortunate to be able to be part of this.
The script is fantastic. I loved it. I really liked reading about how strong Claressa is as a character, like what she did for herself and for the female boxing community in general. She's such a huge influence. And she did it really unassisted. And some of my first conversations with Darren and Nick were a lot about the fights, but a lot about how much heart is in these fights, like how much she really did to get herself there. Ryan is an absolute champ. I was completely blown away by how much work she put into it and how dedicated she was to working with not only just her personal training, but also her boxing and choreography and how much she memorized. She really was amazing and humble and fantastic to work with. Darren is one of the first coordinators that I've ever worked for as a stunt performer myself, and I've worked with Nick so many times over the years, both like with him boxing, doing any kind of fighter boxing choreography, and I've known them for, I feel like 15 years. It's been some time. It was really nice to work with them like this. I feel like it was a really great team, like we are an actual family. I think I really liked the Toledo fight because I liked the way it played out, how they shot it, and how it looked. But I really liked the Spokane fight because I liked the chemistry between Ryan and Natasha, the fighter. It was great. They really seemed like they had a rivalry. That might have been my favorite one to watch. But again, it's hard. I guess it's hard to pick one single sequence because it was really nice to see all these fights come together the way that they did, and all the boxers perform their characters the way they did.
A lot of the choreography was a little difficult if we match it exactly to the actual fight. So we had room to breathe and add some of our own things in there, which was great. It really helped a lot. With the choreo, they were all different. Pretty much every fight was different. You know, we had fights where Claressa was losing and then ends up winning. And she actually loses in one of the fights. And then we had fighters that were sluggers, other fighters that were finesse fighters. So every sequence was different, every single one. The Toledo fight was a wonder. It's one of my favorite fights. Yeah, that was all continuous. I mean, we had the camera way back and then we dropped it and the cameraman went right around in a circle and filmed this fight. It was the one fight where Claressa actually knocks the opponent down. I just think the back and forth stuff, it was so fast. The pace was quick and the fighters were going back and forth really quickly. And I did like the knockdown on top of it. Then the gold medal fight, we had it a little differently. It was back and forth with the first round, we had the edge to Torlopova, who was a Russian fighter. She kind of edged out on the first round, but in the second round, we see Shields turn the corner and find her mark and just tee off and rack up points and take her over, beat her. There are a lot of sequences in a short period of time for us, but we did it. Yeah, I mean, you do the fight, and then Rachel will see it, and then she'll make her adjustments, and Darren will make his, and then I'll get the notes, and we have to re-choreograph stuff, and so that all takes time. And then you have one fight here, you got another fight the next day to do, and so you have to be able to accommodate all of these sequences. The most rewarding for me was watching the final outcome of what I've watched on set, that is, and looking at this on the monitor, I'm thinking, wow, this looks great. I mean, I had, every fight to me was different, and to me, every fight was great. I just loved every fight. I didn't have any issues with not one sequence, and there were a lot of them. I think we did a total of 13, I think it was 13 or 14 sequences with sparring sessions and fights, and I felt really good about all of them. So I mean, it was very rewarding to watch and to see these young performers come out there and give it their all.
A lot of research was done for this, and again, because we were also, it's real people, we were trying to be as authentic as possible, but again, it's a story, so we weren't always like living true to the exact details of their lives, or how they dressed. In my case, how they dressed. We took a little bit of liberty. There are places like Jason at the Olympics at the gold medal match where we decided to just go with what Jason actually wore, because when you would Google Jason Crutchfield, this image would come up. So there were certain places that we really went for exactitude, and others we took a little bit of liberty just for storytelling purposes. Claressa Shields herself wore a lot of pink. She was, okay, don't want to say girly, but she wore a lot of pink. So we, especially in the early stages, we used pink a lot just to showcase that. I'm not the set decorator, but it went into set decoration as well. We were like totally engulfed in pink for Claressa's world. I kind of moved out of that as we went on in the story, but that was a big part of the storytelling, was that pink, which we ended up using as well for her prom dress. Like the real Claressa actually wore a peach or salmon colored dress. We ended up using pink for Claressa in our story. Jason, he's a coach, again, reference. We talked about the white flint. There was also a gold t-shirt that he wore for Burston. The real Burston boxing gym, they wore, their colors were like this gold or yellow and purple. For whatever reasons, we kind of stayed away from the purple. I think that was, I can't remember if that was pre or post Claressa's time, but we stayed away from purple and went into his gold. So you'll see that in the film. And there was one back in our first week at Burston. I remembered seeing him in this yellow shirt, and there was a scene where it's like he was commanding attention and it just stood out, and it was like so perfect. Although it's pretty bright, we kind of limited the use of that, but there was a few scenes where it was just like perfect, and it was great. We did a lot of sourcing from, actually we did a lot of sourcing from secondhand or used, a little bit of rentals, but it felt like we were getting like the flavor that we needed from some local stores that sell reused clothing, because right now retail is suffering. So yeah, we couldn't really just go out to the mall and get clothes, especially because it's 2012, although it seems not long ago, it still is a period, not, we kind of kept it for the eye, the contemporary eye. It was, there's a balance in there where things might not be super oversized either, because 2012, it ran the gamut. She was always there to answer like any question, her and Rena. Like I was always on set with my clothes to show, like they'd be looking over. It's like, oh, okay, it's Marcy again. Really easy to work with, and yeah, just always there, always available to answer questions, because it was a lot. Like we had so many changes for these characters. It spans not only with the flashback, it spans 3 years, and there's not a lot of, there was, like, I think Claressa had like 52 changes or like more, I can't even remember. That's a lot, on an average film, we might have like 8 changes or something per character. And that was, Clarissa, Jason, Mickey. It was a lot. So there was always questions. We can't ever do everything in prep. So it's continuous as we shoot. So she was always available. It was really a great experience in collaboration. It's about life and determination and overcoming obstacles, in life sometimes, and also the power of women. In my research, I spoke to some vendors who are, had a lot of dealings with boxing vendors, and one of them was so excited. They were like, over the last few years, there's been so many women that have started in the sport, and they just feel like this film is going to hit like a really wide audience of women. So I can't wait to see if that's true, but looking forward to it. But yeah, I think it really is going to be a story about overcoming obstacles and like just going for it. It's something that we need to see. We need to see again and again just to keep us going.
It's an incredible story of what somebody can do when they show their resilience, perseverance, and continuing to focus on doing something amazing with their life, whether it's for boxing or anything that a person focuses on and continues to try to do and do better and better and get more out of life than maybe what the cards have dealt for her and her family at present. I mean, I can't believe how hard she worked to be Claressa Shields. She's been on a food plan. She started boxing down in Los Angeles. She was personal training. She's a very, very dedicated person, and she, started off really tiny, and we had to build her up and make her look more like an athlete that could box, and she did an amazing job. And then cut to coming to Toronto and then getting into the full-on choreography of the boxing. So dedicated and hardworking. And watching her box, you would never think she wasn't a boxer. She did such an incredible job. I'm so impressed with her. Never mind the fact that she's just a wonderful person. And learning now that she's not just an actor, now she's an athlete. She also has her own clothing company. She's quite the little entrepreneur, never mind being a model. And I understand she might be a singer as well. She's got some music coming out, so she's quite a role model for all those young girls out there. Brian is one of my most favorite people I've ever worked with. He brings an incredible ambience onto the set, makes everybody laugh. He just creates such a wonderful atmosphere on set. Honestly, like one of my most favorite experiences in my career has been working with him. Never mind the fact that watching him in the read-through, my first real encounter was the read-through with him. He killed it. He's just incredible. I can't imagine anybody, and I wasn't on the first one, but I can't imagine anybody being Jason, the coach, other than Brian. He's amazing. So our stunt coordinator was Darren Marsman. Our choreographer was Nick Galakiadis, and our assistant stunt coordinator is Stephanie Hawkins. They were a dynamic team, and one complemented the other. Whatever the strengths were with Darren, Stephanie offset anything that was his weakness. So between them and then Nick just focusing on choreography, it was a great team. Working with Rachel was a lot of fun. It kept us on our toes. We had to stay on top of her. She's always throwing ideas out there. She's always talking to everybody she can to get more input. She's always looking for new ideas and how to execute them. So we, as a production team, we had to stay on top of it and be ready for whatever curveball she might throw to us.